health. So this means checking things like your sleep, your diet, your exercise, the physical aspect of the body. Is there a problem physically? Is there a hormonal imbalance? Is there a thyroid problem? How am I taking care of my physical health? But that's not everything, is it? There's another room in the house you have to check. There's another part of your life that you have to check for the source of the fire, and that is your environment. See, this question is asking, I am suffering, and I'm trying to really work on my relationship with Allah, but I keep suffering. But see, relationship with Allah is one of the 4 rooms, but there's still 3 more. Does everyone get what I'm saying? So I'm taking you through the other rooms. The biological, so the physical health. The second is the environmental. Now this is, how's my environment? Is it abusive? Is it toxic? Is it oppressive? Essentially, is my house burning down? Because if your house is on fire, you can be memorizing Quran day and night. You can be praying day and night. You can be fasting every single day. You're still going to get burnt. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so environment has to be examined. Because if our environment is unhealthy, if our environment is unsafe, we will suffer, even if we are praying day and night. Because that is part of health, is a healthy environment. You can't be sitting in a fire and saying, but you know what, I'm praying. Makes sense? Number 3 is the psychological health. So one of the sources of our suffering can actually be mental health. A person can be mentally unhealthy, even as a person who prays 5 times a day, even as a person who is a hafiz, even as a person who is a scholar. They can still be mentally unhealthy. Why? This is what we don't realize, is that when you come from a traumatic childhood, when you come from abuse, when you come from neglect, when you come from war, when you come from abandonment, when you come from various types of trauma, it affects you in a way that cannot be ignored and cannot be bypassed through spirituality. Does that make sense? One of the things we didn't understand is, how can someone who's a Quran teacher, for example, abuse children? How's that possible? Does it happen? Yes, it happens. Why does it happen? Because that individual is not healthy mentally, is not healthy psychologically. That individual has a type of trauma that happened to them that was not healed. And even though they became a hafiz and they may have become the greatest scholar in the world, but if they're not healing that trauma, they will not be healthy. This is the problem of what we're not talking about. Is that for example, if you break a bone, that broken bone has to be addressed. You cannot say, just pray more or recite more Quran. Because reciting Quran and praying and being a hafiz and being a scholar will absolutely make you, it will nourish your soul. It will bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It will feed you spiritually. But it won't heal the broken bone until you heal the broken bone. And a lot of us are dealing with traumas that were never healed. And so even while that person can be a Quran teacher, they still have that broken bone. And what happens with these broken bones is that broken people break people. Trauma, abuse is something that gets passed on. How does abuse get passed on? Abuse gets passed on typically in one of two ways. When you've been abused, one of two things tends to happen. You either grow up to model the abuser, or you grow up to marry the abuser. And that's how abuse continues. That's called generational trauma. Because there's a psychological reason why this happens. And that reason is that the human being prefers a familiar hell to an unfamiliar heaven. That's just how the nervous system works. And so until you retrain the nervous system to find something else familiar that is healthy, it will gravitate towards whatever is familiar. So if what is familiar is abuse, then it will gravitate towards that. Either by modeling the abuse or marrying the abuse. Until that is healed and rewired. Make sense? And this is why we cannot bypass this discussion through just spirituality. Spirituality is a huge part of the discussion. And I would argue the biggest part. But it isn't the whole discussion. Because we also have to talk about childhood wounds. And we have to talk about trauma. And we have to talk about broken bones. And we have to talk about houses that are on fire. And until we can talk about those things, we cannot talk about holistically being healthy. We can't have a healthy society unless we are seeing the human being holistically. Because this is why we are seeing abuse in our community, even among the most religious. Because that adult was abused as a child. And so they grew up to become abusive. And now we are creating a whole new generation of traumatized people until we break that cycle.
So on the topic of trauma, someone else asked, how can I talk to my friend who struggles to accept a traumatic childhood event as a test from Allah without making her feel responsible for it?
I think we have a lot of misunderstanding about what a test means. A test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it doesn't mean that you don't do anything about it. Let me go back to the house that's on fire. When you find out that your kitchen is burning down, you're standing there and you are seeing your house burn down. Do you look at that fire and say, this is my test. I must have sabr. I must have patience because this is the qadr of Allah, so I'm going to go back to sleep. Is that how you deal with that? Do you look at a fire and say, I'm going to do nothing about it because it's a test? Or do you say, of course this is the qadr of Allah, but I am going to do something. I'm going to call the fire department. I'm going to get a fire extinguisher. I'm going to save my home. And if I can't save my home, I'm going to run, not just walk out of the burning house. Right? I mean, is this rocket science? Am I speaking anything that's not logical? This is the problem is that a test from Allah doesn't mean you're not supposed to do anything. Let me ask you this. When Hajar alayhi salam was in the middle of a desert with a baby and no one around, was that a test from Allah? Yes or no? Yes, of course it was. But did she do something? Or did she just sit there? Did she sit there passively say, this is my test. I have tawakkul. I have sabr, so let me just sit. No, she didn't. She got up and she ran between Safa and Marwa. And she didn't do it once or twice or 3 times. She did it 7 times in the burning heat. So a test from Allah doesn't mean we don't take action. Now, in the case of trauma, what is the action that should be taken? Well, first, you must try to stop the oppression. But second, you must take action to heal the wounds. Because wounds that are not healed get passed on. Simple enough? So, as a believer who is experienced or experiencing some form of oppression or abuse or trauma, first, we try to stop it. Second, we heal from it. And that process of stopping oppression and healing from oppression is part of our worship. The Prophet ﷺ, when he saw the companion who wasn't tying his camel, he asked him, why aren't you tying your camel? So this is like someone not locking their Mercedes, right? And he says, because I have tawakkul. I have trust in Allah. And what did the Prophet ﷺ say? He said, اعقلها وتوكل. Tie it and also put your trust in Allah. And so the process of stopping oppression and healing from oppression and getting therapy when necessary is tying our camel, and that's part of our worship.
There are a lot of questions specifically about one kind of oppression, which is bullying. So,
what is it?
Bullying. So someone asked, how can we Islamically handle bullying, harassment, threats in our communities, at our schools, at our masjids, especially when the bully is in power?
It usually is. It's like a teacher. Yeah. There should honestly be a 0% tolerance when it comes to bullying. Bullying is so toxic to the human psyche that it absolutely zero policy, like zero tolerance for bullying. What does that mean? It means that as a community, we have to stand up against bullying. It means with legislation, we have to stand up against bullying. It also means as parents, you have to protect your children. Do not turn the other cheek if your child is being bullied. Because that is one of the most harmful types of abuse for the human being, is someone who's being bullied. It's very serious. I mean, I want you to think about for a moment, school shooters. What do they usually have in common? Does anybody know? Have you looked into it? They were bullied. Almost every single one of them. It is so toxic. It is so detrimental. We have to take it very serious as a community and as parents. If your child is being bullied, do not dismiss it. Take it very serious. I'm telling you, take it very serious. Don't tell your kids, just ignore it. Just be strong. Just turn the other cheek. No. Take it very serious. Take action. Escalate it. Escalate it to the leadership. Escalate it to the principal. Escalate it to the school, to the school board if you have to. Do not Do not allow that to happen to your child. Take action. And I mean really, really strong action. And remove your child if necessary, because it is your job. You literally have one job as a parent. One job. That's not to make your child a doctor and make your child marry their cousin or whatever it is. It is one thing, and that is to protect your child in this life or the next. That's your one job. One job. If you decided to have children, you better take that job serious. Your job is to protect your child in this life and the next. So take it very serious.
There are also a lot of questions about toxic marriages and toxic families. So someone said, I'm having issues with my marriage. This has brought me closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I talk and cry to my creator regularly. Not sure whether to get out of the marriage. ? Okay.
Let's go back to the burning house. What is step 1 when your house is on fire? Anyone? So if you are in a toxic marriage, your house is on fire, okay? What is step 1 if your house is on fire? Sometimes people are like, run, right? Before running, you're going to try to stop the fire, right? Everyone with me? So you're going to take action to try to stop the fire first. That means calling the fire department, getting a fire extinguisher. So in the case of a toxic marriage or a toxic home, that would mean getting counseling. That would mean getting family involved. That would mean maybe getting trusted leaders in the community involved, getting mediators, getting marital counseling, etc. But what happens if you've tried to stop the fire and it continues? So you've tried already to save the house, but the fire continues and the fire department can't stop it and the fire extinguisher can't stop it. Now is where you run, don't walk out of a burning house. So it's really not rocket science what I'm saying, but step 1 is to try to save the home. How do you save a home that's on fire? Well, Yasmin, you have sabr and you go back to sleep, right? No, wrong answer. The answer is you try to stop the fire. The problem that we have in our community, among other things, is that we have this cultural understanding of sabr, which is that if your house is on fire, have sabr and go back to sleep. And then, mashallah, sister, mashallah. We will praise that sister. We will say, mashallah, she stood in a burning house for 30 years. And she did nothing. Mashallah, sabr, sacrifice. You know these beautiful words that we use. She drank poison so beautifully. She was so good at it. She would drink poison for 35 years. MashaAllah. Her sabr, her sacrifice. What in the universe? But this is real. This is what we praise. It is poisonous. It's toxic. No, this is not Islam. This is not helping the oppressor, and it is not helping the oppressed. The Prophet ﷺ said, help your brother if he is the oppressor or he's oppressed. And when they asked him, how do we help him when he's the oppressor? He said, by stopping him from oppressing. We need to stop enabling oppression. Because oppression cannot exist without enablers. You know that, right? You know Israel can't exist without its enablers. You know that no oppressor, Pharaoh, could not exist without his enablers, without his magicians, which in this case now is the media, right? You cannot have an oppressor without enablers. So don't allow yourself to be part of that enabling machine, right? And again, we try to stop the fire first. We try to rectify the marriage first. We try to save the home and the family first. But by no means do you stay in a burning house when you've tried to stop the fire and it didn't stop. That's not sabr. That's oppression. That's dhulm. And please know that the rest of the people in that house are going to burn with you. I will tell you that I can't tell you how many times I've heard this. It's like sisters in a burning house, and it's like, have sabr, sister. Stay in the burning house and keep your children in the burning house for the sake of their children. Have sabr, sister. Stay in the burning house. Don't do anything about it. Just stay in the burning house and keep your children in the burning house for the sake of your children. You examine the logic of that. But this is what we're dealing with. Anyone who grows up in fire is going to have wounds that they have for the rest of their life until they do the work to heal them. Otherwise, they take those wounds into their marriages, they take those wounds into their parenting, and they pass them on. And that's how this cycle continues until someone breaks the cycle. How do you break this cycle? By stopping the fire or leaving the fire. And then healing the wounds from the fire. Because a lot of us grew up in houses that were on fire.
So we have time for one more question, and I'm kind of combining questions here. What do you do if you have a friend or loved one who is in a fire and they don't want to take your advice? They don't want to listen to you. They might even cut you out of their life for trying to help.
Well, just a few reminders. You cannot save a drowning person by drowning yourself. Everybody got that? You can't kill yourself in order to save someone else. So that's the first thing, is that we have to understand you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved, and you can't change someone who doesn't want to change. And until we can understand that, we may continue to try to kill ourselves and try to drown ourselves to save a drowning person. So it's first very important to know Allah is the only one who can save someone. And that person needs to want to be helped. That person needs to want to change. You can't want it for them. So what's our job? When we see someone who is hurting themselves or who's allowing themselves to continue to be hurt, what's our job? First, to make dua. To make dua for them. Second is to be a source of advice and support for them. But understanding you can't do it for them. You can't do it for them. And you definitely can't do it by killing yourself. The Prophet ﷺ himself was taught this lesson, wasn't he? He said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ. Indeed, you do not guide whom you love, but Allah guides whom He wills. Because He couldn't guide His own uncle, right? Nuh alayhi salam couldn't guide his own son, right? Lut alayhi salam couldn't guide his own wife, right? Do you see what is Allah showing us? If the prophets couldn't do it, how can we? Allah is the one who guides, Allah is the one who saves. Our only job is to advise and to be a source of support. We can't do it for them. All right. Jazakumullah khairan. Subhanakallah wa bihamdaka ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. There are still a few limited copies if anybody wanted to grab a book. Jazakumullah khairan for hosting me, inviting me, and for your attention. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us all to heal ourselves and to break these cycles so that insha'Allah we can have a strong ummah that raises strong children who are healthy spiritually but also healthy mentally, psychologically, and physically, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله